So, hi, I'm KB with Nerdfiles. How are
Hi,
you?
KB. How are you? I'm doing good.
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Well, listen, I absolutely adored this first season. I
Oh,
mean,
good.
Lady Jane is exceptional, but also flawed, like all
Hmm.
great women. And, what I love is that, even if she makes a mistake, she never gives up, even when her feet are quite literally to the fire.
That's true.
Um, so, as Jane was kind of embracing stepping into her new power and new role, what has stepping into the role of Jane taught you about stepping into your own and kind of owning your own power in your life?
Do you know, I think it taught me something that, if you wait to feel prepared, you're never going to get anywhere. And take life, by the reins. Oh, that's a good pun for this show. And you have to have faith in your ability. I think Jane has a very clear idea of who she is, and that's why even when faced with sort of the reckoning that she might not be all knowing and that she does have a lot to learn about the world, she's still able to learn and keep her, her vision really clear of what she wants for herself. And I think that that's really inspiring.
Oh, I love that. Now listen, it may be obvious or it may seem like Mary is like her greatest adversary, but who do you think is really Jane's greatest adversary on this journey? Because Mary, I think, is just a small part of the role, but oftentimes Mary gets in her own way. So I don't find that she is necessarily, brilliant in that way because she often just is making the wrong moves for herself. So who do you think might be, the greatest adversary that Jane has on this journey, apart from Mary?
Well, that's really interesting. Who's Jane's greatest adversary? Yeah, because you could say, her mother is sort of refusing to look at a woman's place with any sort of modern sensibility. Um, and it could be that. But I think it really comes down to it's society, it's the world around her. I mean, women were expected to be property, to bear children, and that was it. And then once you had those, they didn't really need you anymore, and off with your head in a lot of situations. So I think she's constantly sort of grappling with the expectations and standards of the time, and sort of her independent desires, and she wants some freedom, and the world does not accept that.
I love that you said the world. Yeah. Because I wouldn't necessarily say her mother only because I think that she and her mom are quite similar in a lot of
I
ways.
know they are. See, that's me. I'm
They're
like, no, they're not. They really are. They are.
they are. And her mother views the world, maybe not in a modern sense, but she knows how to play chess instead of checkers when it
Incredibly
comes
savvy.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
the
what she's
stakes
gonna
are
help.
so high. I mean, they don't have a father in our story, and the only way to have survival back then was to get married. So her mother is playing the game for Jane's sake. Really, she's trying to protect her family and herself. She goes about it in a way that I think bothers Jane a bit. But yeah, they're quite similar. So yeah, it's the world really that's putting all this pressure on them to even have conflict. If society weren't the way it was, I don't think Frances and Jane would really have conflict beyond, the classic mother-daughter back and forth.
Yeah, that's true. And so my last question really is kind of what was the most creatively challenging scene to film this very first season?
Creatively challenging. I think when Jane is, and I think I can say this without giving anything away because it is the history, she's told that she is now the Queen of England, which just saying that, the concept of that, one day someone walks in and says, "You're the Queen of England," person who has never had a position of power ever in her life. And I think for me, I found that to be a good challenge because taking power, as a young woman in a room full of people, whether that be in life, on set, at a dinner, anything, it can feel scary and daunting to just stand there and really like own your power. So I think I really wanted to be able to balance her sort of nerves and naivety of how to tackle this ridiculously high stakes situation, but also that she kind of takes to it quite well. You know, she might actually be a good person for that position.
Yeah, I love that you said that. She's very level-headed. And so
Mm.
it actually works because she's thinking about how the world works and how she can assist and what that looks like. So, oh my gosh, I can't wait for everyone to see season one. It was hilarious too, I should
Oh,
say.
good.
So
There are
yes.
so many funny actors in this. Like it's so. Oh yeah, it's really funny.
Amazing. Listen, I love, love, love the show. It is so fun. And King Edward and lady turned queen, I guess, spoiler alert, Mary, have a very complicated sibling relationship. I mean, of course, there's the attempted murder of it all, at the center. So through this kind of circumstance, I have to start with you, Jordan, and ask, what do you think that King Edward learns from his sister Mary and her cutthroat ways that may empower him to be who he was always meant to be?
Nice.
I learned that she's absolutely nuts. No, no, yeah, from that experience of my sister trying to kill me, I realized that yeah, King Edward is not someone that really bites back, and he really has to learn to bite back and for no one to mess around with him anymore. So going through that journey of discovering that I am a fighter, King Edward is a fighter, and he's not going to back down from anyone else. And also just a journey of becoming the king that people wanted him to be like, because people keep comparing him to his father. But he needed to discover it in his own way. And you know what? Even though Mary did some questionable things, I think it's good that it happened because it allowed King Edward to discover who he is as a person.
Questionable.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. We know she's pretty firm and steadfast on her journey and her path. I think she knows herself, I think, arguably better than anyone in the series. So I have to ask for you, Kate, what do you think Mary may have learned from Edward about managing a kingdom, and how do you think she hinders her own success throughout season one?
Well, I think one of Mary's huge flaws is that she underestimates. So I think she underestimates Edward. Mm-hmm. I think she underestimates Jane. And I think she's so obsessed with getting the throne that she's just so livid about it that she's not got it. I'm not sure she's learning anything from Edward in a way that she could and benefit from. I think she dismisses him and is just trying to clear the path for her. But she could learn a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he's just so angry.
Yeah.
There's no... I'm so glad you said that, because the whole time I was thinking, is she ever calm? Like, I just think she's always so upset.
You know what? I was thinking about Mary. I think she's so wound up the whole day that she sleeps really well because she's so exhausted. I think she sleeps the whole night, and then I think she wakes up and is immediately livid again, and it just goes through. So when she's calm, she's asleep. Yeah.
Okay. I could see that. I could see that. Well, listen, I love the show. I can't wait for people to see it because I think it is just so over the top. It's hilarious. It's even hilarious when King Edward says he has great instincts. I'm like, bless his heart. There's no instinct in him, I think, right now when we first see him. But that's okay. That's okay. Hi. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love the show. It's so, so fun. So Lady Frances and Lord Dudley have some interesting parenting styles. And utter control really seems to be at the top of those parenting styles for
and it goes so wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, annoyingly.
Right. What could go wrong with trying to control every single detail of your children's lives?
Exactly.
What can go wrong? So, what do you think their respective children teach them over the course of season one? And I'll start with you, Anna.
Oh my God, that's such an interesting question. I don't know how teachable Frances is. But she ultimately, she wants Jane's happiness, and she has to let a lot go by the end. Well, I won't tell you what happens in the end, but she has to let a lot go. And I think that she is humanized. But I mean, she's not going to go down without a fight. and I don't know how much she's really learned.
Well, let me tell you, by the end, I was like, I'm not sure if she learned anything, but you do see a little bit more of her heart.
Yes. So that is a learning, isn't it? If your heart has opened up a little bit, that's a learning process.
That's true. That's true.
I would
And what
say
about you, Rob?
that by the end of it, Dudley's learned that you can't be all controlling. You know, that you can't, it just doesn't work. I would say that is what he's learned.
Well, that's a great lesson. And I hope, if there's a season 2, he keeps that journey, because there is a lot of forgiveness between him and his sons. But I do hope he keeps that at the forefront of his mind, as the story continues, if it does, for sure. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but by season's end, I feel like Lord Dudley is not aware that Lady Frances is having a bit of a tryst with his son Stan. So what do each of you kind of think will happen to their unconventional partnership if Lord Dudley does find out? Because I'll be honest, before I saw what was happening between Frances and Stan, I actually thought that the two of you would have more of a relational alliance. So
Never. I only like very young men.
Look at this. Look at this.
you
It's
have
all-
crossed the age threshold, she said, no more.
I think it's true, though. He doesn't know, does he?
No, I don't think he does. No.
If he knew, would he be sure?
No, but I think it's much better comedically if he would never to know, because that's funny. That's funny. And then you have the tension. Once he knows,
Yes, once he knows, you've then got to sort it out. But it's quite funny at not being sorted out, that relationship, isn't it? It's a funny relationship. The young guy really being in love with the older woman who just wants him for sex.
and a dad who thinks he's in control, being totally unaware. That's a very funny situation to play.
It's almost like he never sees Stan. He's just so busy controlling everything else that he completely misses Stan in a lot of things.
I think he sees Stan as a bit of a washout. He's a bit of a whipping boy, Stan. And I did enjoy playing those scenes with Henry, because the physicality between the two of us, with me being short and dark and him being tall and light and blonde, we're funny just to look at. And then me being the one who, in theory, has the power and the authority, that makes it funny as well. And I had a very lovely rapport with Henry. We had a nice timing, as Anna and I had as well. When you find an actor that you have a chemistry with and you can go bing bong bing, it's always lovely.
Oh
Yeah,
my
you
gosh, I
can't
love
predict
that.
No, you can't predict it.
Even
no.
if the other actor's really good,
Yeah.
it sometimes still doesn't feel that easy with them. Yeah.
Well, I told you guys I thought you had chemistry. I thought it was going in a whole different direction. So, Listen, Susanna is fierce and loyal and bright and such a great warrior. And her friendship with Jane, albeit very complicated in certain ways, is one of the best parts of the series for me. I think it is so lovely. So as Susanna kind of escapes death and continues to drive the revolution to protect these Ethians, what do you think her friendship with Jane teaches her on this revolutionary journey? And what do you think she teaches Jane about herself and how to carry herself in this new role as queen?
That's such a great question. I feel like when she leaves the castle and kind of has to leave her job, is forced to leave her job and escape, I think she really sees the light and sees more from the Ethian aspect, or perspective rather, because she has never been around Ethians, right, for her whole life. And then through meeting the pack and meeting Archer, someone who is so kind of at the forefront of the revolution and has such a desire to change, I think it completely makes her see the light for the first time and realize what she was doing in repressing her true identity, and how she is, I guess, molded to the Verity norm, and kind of has molded into that for her whole life rather. I think that it's taught her that actually her and Jane's relationship, as close as they are and were throughout their whole time when she was keeping the fact she was an Ethian a secret, I think she realizes how much of a power dynamic there really was, and that actually was never going to change. Even if Jane was to find out, which obviously she does in the series, you realize that Jane has her own biases and like can't help but like be exceptionally privileged, let's say, in her background, and she doesn't realize that how difficult it's been for Susanna. And I think like, yeah, and then Jane has to learn to has to learn more about the Ethians and learn how difficult it's been and realize that there's actually not any difference between them, and why shouldn't they be living safely and equally alongside one another. And I think like as the series goes on, you see both of them embracing and kind of willing to compromise and come back to one another, which feels like encouraging. But it's such a complex relationship and journey for them, which I loved exploring.
Yeah, I love that you said the power struggle that she didn't realize, because that is very true. I think in the beginning, she does see them as friends, even though, you know, she is Jane's helpmate and essentially, I guess, works for Jane's family. She definitely doesn't understand that. And Jane for sure doesn't understand it until Susanna has to pull her to the side and say, we need money. Like, you are not thinking about this. Like, we absolutely need money, but you never consider it.
Yeah. And you can't really blame, I guess, like, Jane is so sheltered and just has like, you know, and I think Susanna says that at one point, it's like, how would you know? You don't even go outside. You don't know anything about the real world. And that's absolutely true of Jane's like upbringing. And now it's time, I think, like Susanna feels the frustration of going, you know, you're old enough now and the real world is happening outside and you have all these big ideas and you read loads and you're so intelligent, yet you don't actually focus enough on what's going on in the real world and have a desire to change that. And I think like Jane gets quite shocked by that realization, but has a real desire to change and for the benefit of their relationship. And also I think she can see the wrongdoing in how the society is built at that stage, so wants to be different.
I 100% agree. And I think whether or not Susanna will take credit for it, I do believe that she's the catalyst for Jane kind of switching flipping in her mind, where she does become more socially aware to the things that are going on around her. I do think it's because of her friendship with Susanna, for sure.
Yeah, that is true. I hadn't really kind of thought about that. And I guess Susanna's not doing that in a purposeful way. She's not kind of seeing it as a kind of big overarching you know, you need to be more aware. I think she's just like thinking about, I'm your best friend and you don't even know what's going on with me. Like, let's actually speak about this.
So I will start with you, Gemma. For you, what was your favorite episode to craft? And then which one was most kind of creatively challenging for you?
It's hard to choose because like choosing between my children. I really love episode 3 because I think it's just pure swashbuckling joy. And episode 7 makes me cry.
Oh, you know,
even
I don't
now.
remember if I cried during 7.
So self-indulgent because like we made it and it still makes me cry.
When we were writing it, we kind of teared up a little.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And so my next question is for you, Meredith. Kind of which character did you find yourself relating to the most? And then also, which character did you find yourself kind of unexpectedly rooting for in season 1?
I relate to Jane the most. She's so I'm going to say a lot of words that will make me sound. She's compassionate. She's intelligent. No, but she never quits. Jane is just somebody who never stops pushing, and you have to admire that about her.
Yeah.
And I was completely charmed and besotted by Frances as we crafted her and as her journey progressed.
We love Frances.
She's got more than a little bit of our mothers
and
ourselves.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you, I talked to Anna earlier, and like, she is hilarious, number 1. But number 2, Frances's journey, I like that you said that, because by the end, you know, by the time I got to episode 8, I started to see a bit more of Frances's heart.
Yeah.
Which was so lovely to see. And then there's also a little bit of like Jane finally understanding Frances a bit more. I mean, they've come such a long way from the first episode, and even her telling her sisters, that's how mom is, but just really kind of understanding that underneath all of the control, because she is the most controlling mother I think I've ever
Do you
seen.
feel like
Love.
a big part of growing up and becoming an adult is looking at reevaluating your parents
Yeah.
and reevaluating your parents' flaws?
And also, we think that, Frances is, she has the same intelligence as Jane, but she's learned how to survive within the system, and Jane tries to survive outside of it.
And Frances thinks that's
And
ridiculous.
Frances thinks that's ridiculous.
But I love that you said that, because Frances definitely takes a lot of jabs at the men and how dumb they are throughout the series. And so she's constantly like, like, I know they're dumb, but I'm playing chess, not checkers. So I'm just leaning into the worlds that I was born into, essentially, and trying to make the best of it. So I appreciate that you said that.
Exactly.
It's very brilliant. And I really hope that, like, in season 2, because I hope there's a season 2, there's more of Jane and Frances kind of together growing in that way, and less of Frances being controlling, but more of her really seeing Jane for the brilliant and fierce daughter that she really is.
Yeah, I think Frances needs to find a bit of maternal pride.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be really fun to see Frances in the back foot. I mean, it's very, very hard to write a scene with Frances where she doesn't win.
Yeah, she is always winning.
She is indeed,
Even when she's losing,
the winner
she's
of all things. And I think that might be the point of contention between Frances and Mary, right? Like, Frances is trying to make Mary believe that she can win, but ultimately in her head, she's like, I got you too, Mary.
Yeah.